Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into an explainer that is, well, it's quite literally the anatomy of a nightmare.
We are unpacking a deeply unsettling piece of folklore today. It's a meticulously crafted story about isolation, belief, and ultimate betrayal. Now, to really grasp the sheer dread of this tale, I want you to picture one very specific, very isolated image in your mind. Imagine a torn, filthy burlap sack mounted on a wooden post in the dead of night. Drawn onto it with just crude charcoal is this jagged, crooked smile. Its arms are stretched wide open, but not in a welcoming way, right? It's aggressive, almost like it's inviting the whole world into this deadly embrace. And down at the base of that post, half hidden in the dry leaves, lies a severed, rotting hand, a hand that's still wearing a very familiar, gleaming gold ring. That is the horrifying reality we're stepping into today.
And what's wild is that all of this terror, it's entirely contained within a dying community. We're talking about the village of Kairagar, and out of the entire settlement, only 15 houses are left. Just 15. Everyone else has already fled. And the people who stayed, they aren't really living. It's more like they exist as breathing corpses. Because the second the sun sets, this absolute suffocating silence just falls over the entire village. Those remaining 15 residents, they lock their doors, they cower in the dark, and they are absolutely terrified of the dense cornfield that sits right on the border of their homes.
So how did it get this bad? Well, this dread didn't just appear overnight. It escalated, step by step, into an unavoidable confrontation. Let's look at the timeline. Over the past year, 7 people, specifically outsiders, simply vanished. No trace, not a single footprint left behind. But the real tipping point, the event that sets everything in motion, happened just 2 weeks ago, when a local elder, Grandfather Shivnoth, disappeared straight into that very same cornfield. And that brings us to our protagonist, Raghav. He is Shivnoth's grandson, and he is visiting his ancestral village for the very first time. He represents our present night. He arrives with this burning motivation to uncover the truth and drag whatever happened to his grandfather out into the light.
Okay, let's dive into this clash of ideologies because it's central to the whole narrative. On one hand, you have Raghav's modern, city-bred skepticism. He literally cannot process the village's fear. To him, monsters aren't real. It's got to be a psycho killer or maybe wild animals. He completely refuses to accept that just looking at a cornfield is a death sentence. So he arms himself with cold, hard logic, a heavy-duty flashlight, and a sharp axe, right? But on the flip side, we have this paralyzing village superstition. The locals know something he doesn't. They possess this deep-rooted primal terror that keeps them completely immobilized behind closed doors. But Raghav, he steps right out into the pitch-black midnight, completely determined to cure the village of its delusions.
Now, I want you to vividly imagine walking into this sensory nightmare with him. The details here are absolutely crucial for setting the stage. As Raghav crosses the boundary into the cornfield, the silence is just oppressive. The tall, dense corn stalks instantly close in around him, creating this suffocating, claustrophobic maze. And as he wades deeper in, the temperature plummets. It drops so drastically that every single breath he takes materializes in the beam of his flashlight. But honestly, the worst part? The smell. This overwhelming, stomach-churning stench of rotting meat and coagulated blood just hits him like a physical wall. He literally has to cover his nose with his sleeve just to keep putting one foot in front of the other toward the clearing in the center. And that is exactly where he finds the Scarecrow, the Bajuka. His flashlight beam hits that blood-stained burlap face, and its cold-drawn smile almost seems to be mocking him. But the true shock, the exact moment that violently shatters Raghav's modern skepticism, happens when he looks down. Right there, buried in the dry husks at the base of the wooden peg, is a rotting human hand. And on one of its decaying fingers shines his grandfather Shivnoth's gold ring. That's it. That is the undeniable, horrifying proof. His grandfather didn't just wander off, he was butchered right here.
So what does Raghav do? Despite this freezing wave of panic shooting down his spine, he desperately clings to his rational mind. He grips his axe tight, knuckles completely white, and he screams into the dense, dark cornfield. "Who is behind this? Come out! I'm not afraid!" It's such a powerful moment, perfectly capturing his false sense of control. He is literally demanding a human enemy to step forward. He's trying to force this entire terrifying situation to follow the rules of the logical world he understands. But as we know, the cornfield doesn't play by logical rules. Actually, scratch that, it doesn't play by any rules. Immediately after he shouts, the wind dies completely, dead silence. And then the nightmare accelerates. Raghav shines his light back at the post, and the post is completely empty. The ropes are sliced, the Scarecrow is just gone. Suddenly, this heavy, dry, dragging sound scrapes across the dirt right behind him, and before he can even pivot to look, he feels it, a freezing, putrid breath right on the back of his neck.
He whips around. The bazooka is standing right there. Its empty burlap eye holes are now glowing with this piercing demonic red light. It reaches out, and its arm, which is basically made of sharp thorns and dry wood, pierces straight through Raghav's jacket, digging deep into the flesh of his left shoulder. In this blind surge of adrenaline and pure agony, Raghav swings his axe with everything he has, tearing a massive gash right through the Scarecrow's stomach. But let's slow down here for a second, because what spills out is pure horror. There's no straw, there's no hay or dry wood. Instead, a cascade of human bones clashes to the ground, followed by the half-chewed, severed head of a young boy. The exact boy who had vanished from the village just 2 weeks prior. The boy's lifeless, wide-open eyes are staring up, and terrifyingly, his face is twisted into a smile.
At this point, Raghav's mind just shuts down. The sheer terror takes over entirely. Tearing himself away, literally leaving pieces of his own flesh behind on those thorns, he abandons his axe and just sprints blindly through the corn. The bazooka gives chase, a relentless monster right on his heels. Raghav is battered, he's bleeding, gasping for air, but he finally bursts out of the cornfield and collapses into the center of the village square. He thinks he's safe. He looks up, screaming for help, yelling that the monster is real, but his voice just catches in his throat. The 14 remaining elders of the village are standing there, in a perfect circle, holding torches. And they aren't surprised. They aren't afraid. They are just calmly waiting, with these cold, stony smiles on their faces.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the horrific economic exchange that the village elder Kaka calmly explains to a bleeding, utterly confused Raghav. You see, 50 years ago, Karirgar was basically a graveyard. There was a famine, the land was barren, seeds were rotting in the dust, and children were starving. So, out of pure, dark desperation, the ancestors performed a ritual to awaken a guardian, the bazooka. But here's the catch. This guardian doesn't want water or fertilizer. The present-day prosperity they have now, those golden, lush, impossibly rich crops, they come at a terrifying price. The bazooka feeds exclusively on human blood and flesh. The village didn't just know about the monster, they created it, they worship it, and they feed it.
And this brilliantly illustrates the total moral decay of the village. For decades, the arrangement worked fine for them because the victims weren't their own people. Those 7 missing people from the past year, they were never locals. They were weary travelers, innocent passersby, who were intentionally lured into the village by the elders, only to be fed to the cornfield to ensure a bountiful harvest. They were literally trading human lives for agricultural prosperity. But there was a fatal flaw in their twisted system. This year, the harvest was exceptionally large. And as the crops grew, so did the bazooka's insatiable hunger. Outsiders were no longer enough to satisfy it. So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the terrible fate of Raghav's grandfather. When the monster's hunger hit its peak, it turned on the village and claimed grandfather Shivnath. But the bazooka operates on this twisted supernatural law known as Kun Keeper Pai, the debt of blood. Basically, it's a rule that says if the entity ever consumes the blood of a local villager, that debt has to be repaid. A direct descendant of the victim must be offered up to take their place.
The realization hits Raghav like a physical blow. Grandfather Shivnath didn't just accidentally fall victim to the monster. The village elders intentionally fed him to the bazooka. Why? Because they knew it would act as the perfect bait to lure his city-dwelling grandson, Raghav, right back to the village. As Raghav processes the sheer depth of this betrayal, this horrifying sound of cracking bones starts approaching from behind him. The bazooka steps right into the light of the torches. But you guys, it no longer has a burlap face. The Scarecrow lifts its head, and staring directly back at Raghav is the decaying, rotting face of his own grandfather Shivnath, grafted right onto the monster's body.
There is absolutely no escape. The elders close the circle. Strong hands grab Raghav, pinning him to the dirt, and they drag him, screaming, right back to the feet of the Scarecrow. Then, the narrative cuts to the very next morning. The sun rises over Karagar, and the cornfields are just more intensely green, more wildly lush than ever before. The village is prosperous once again. But standing right there in the center of the field, next to the old Scarecrow, is a brand new, slightly taller bazooka, and peering out from behind that dirty, stitched burlap face are Raghav's wide, terrified, completely living eyes. He is entombed forever within the monster.
It is an ending that genuinely leaves a pit in your stomach, right? And it forces us to confront the core theme of this incredibly dark tale. The bazooka is a terrifying supernatural entity, yes, for sure. But ultimately, it is just a tool. It was the villagers, the ordinary, desperate human beings, who made the conscious choice to trade innocent lives for their own comfort. So it leaves us with this. When survival demands the ultimate price, who are the real monsters in the dark? Is it the supernatural creatures we invent, or is it the depths of humanity itself? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll see you in the next one.